The first sap of the season ran sweet and clear the morning Clara Quinn drove back into Blue Heron Bay. Even before she turned off Route 1, she could smell it, wood smoke from sugar shack fires and the faint caramel perfume that comes when the first gallons of maple water boil down to syrup. She parked beside the long, low barn of her Aunt Nora and Uncle Emmett's Maple Haven farm, shut off the engine, and listened. Chickadees, wind in last year's leaves, and a curious rhythmic metallic tapping in the grove behind the house, almost like someone knocking out a tune on a xylophone. Clara shouldered her overnight bag and followed the sound. 100 yards upslope, rows of sugar maples stood with fresh taps hammered in at shoulder height, plastic tubing laced between them like blue ribbon. Every so often a gust rattled the spiles against bark, plink, plink, plonk, plink, plonk, plink. The tune seemed deliberate, but she couldn't place it. "Pretty, isn't it?" Nora Mapleton called, coming up the path with a mug of coffee in each hand. "Almost makes the trees seem alive." Her cheeks were winter pink, grey curls tucked under a knit cap. She handed Clara a mug. "You're just in time. Emmett's firing up the evaporator, and Silas Finch stopped by with one of his finds. Heaven help us." "Silas, the antique dealer?" Clara asked. "The same. Says he picked up something that belongs to this farm. I half expect pirate treasure." Nora winked. "Come thaw out." Inside the sugar shack, steam already curtained the rafters. Emmett, red-bearded and beaming, ladled foaming syrup off the boil. Beside him stood Silas Finch, tall, tweedy, and theatrical, clutching a weathered sea chest no bigger than a hat box. Scrolled across its lid was the image of a one-eyed skull wearing a tricorn. "Ah, the prodigal niece," Silas declared. "Clara, is it? You're the food writer. Perfect audience." He set the chest on a stump. "Found this at a house clearance in Rockport. Inside." He flipped the latch. Out came a bundle of parchment, a brass pitch pipe tarnished green, and a small pewter flask. The parchment, when unrolled, showed 5 musical staffs, blank except for the title, "The Widow's Ransom." "Never heard of it," Emmett said, peering. "It's an old sea shanty," Silas answered, "sung by the crew of Briggs Carver, the so-called Bar Harbor buccaneer. Legend says he buried a haul of Spanish silver somewhere up this coast. Word is, the notes contained directions." Nora gave him a look. "Silas, if you're trying to sell us folklore, you picked the wrong customers. We're farmers. We worry about real treasure, like a decent grade A amber." "But listen," Silas insisted, raising the pitch pipe. He blew 3 notes, high, higher, highest, and then launched into a rough, humming rendition of a sailor's chant. "Tap the tree at morning light, tap again forenoon, tap the tree when stars grow bright. The widow keeps the tune." Clara felt her skin prickle. Outside, that random plink-plonk pattern had sounded like the first line. She turned to her aunt. "When were the taps set?" "Yesterday," Nora said. "Emmett did the east stand, I did the west." "Why?" "Because someone arranged them to play that melody," Clara said slowly. She explained what she'd heard. Emmett frowned, considering. "We space taps for sap flow, not for music. If someone's moved them, that's damage to the trees, maybe the crop." He grabbed his coat. "I'm going to have a look." Silas closed the chest, looking pleased. "See? The widow's ransom has begun." Nora sighed. "Silas, I swear if this is one of your publicity stunts—" But Silas was already bustling after Emmett, crowing about fortune. Clara followed, curiosity aflame. They inspected the east stand first, spiles drilled at tidy 12-inch intervals, tubing sloped just right. Nothing odd. On the western slope, however, the pattern changed. Some trees carried 3 taps, some only 1, and the spacing hopped up and down the trunks like notes on a scale. Emmett growled, "That'll scar the bark, whoever did it." "If it helps," Clara said, "I can transcribe what it plays." She had studied piano since childhood and had a good ear. She spent the next half hour walking the row. Each time wind ticked metal against wood, she hummed back the pitch, G, A, B, G. On the second pass, she jotted a rough score in her pocket notebook. The opening matched Silas's shanty exactly. The last 5 measures, however, were different, sharper, syncopated, ending on a low C that felt like unanswered suspense. "New verse?" Silas asked. "Maybe a map," Clara murmured. Nora shivered despite her coat. "All right, puzzle people. Enough games. We have syrup to make and orders to fill. Fix those taps, please, Em." Silas volunteered to help, his long arms useful for pulling spiles. Clara stayed to assist, but twice as she bent to coil hose, she caught Silas watching her uncle's work with keen, almost calculating interest. That evening, over baked beans and cornbread, Nora admitted she was uneasy. "Silas means well, but if tales of pirate silver bring fortune hunters, we'll have trespassers year-round. Sap lines slit, pumps stolen. You remember what happened to the Whelans' orchard?" Clara did. The previous spring, copper thieves had ruined half the Whelans' apple crop. "We need to solve this quickly," she agreed. "If there's anything here, best we find it before someone reckless does." She laid out her makeshift score. The first 8 bars were the familiar refrain. The last 5 may be a coded set of directions, if only she knew how to read them. Musical notes could be letters, coordinates, or time. Tap the tree at morning light, tap again forenoon. The song itself used tapping as notation. What if the rhythm corresponded to distances between trees, or the pitches to elevation? She rubbed her forehead, stumped. Before dawn, a crash jolted the farmhouse awake. Clara, still in flannel pajamas, dashed outside with the others. The sugar shack doors stood open. Inside, Silas lay sprawled on the plank floor amid broken glass and spilled syrup, groaning. "Silas!" Emmett knelt. "You hurt?" "My head," Silas murmured. Blood trickled at his temple. On the stove, the finishing pan sputtered, flame unattended. While Nora rang the volunteer EMTs, Clara spotted muddy boot prints crossing the threshold. One set, large, leading to the back, then away. Someone had struck Silas, perhaps surprised him snooping. A glint near the woodpile caught her eye. The pewter flask from Silas's sea chest. Its cap hung by a thread, empty. When Caleb Munro, the town constable, arrived, Silas had regained enough sense to protest that nothing was stolen. "I came to check the late boil," he insisted. "Must have slipped." Caleb eyed the bump on Silas's head and the boot prints. "That shove print on your shoulder says different. Who else knew you'd be here?" Silas looked at Clara, but remained silent. The constable sighed. "Well, if you recall anything, holler. Meanwhile, I'll lock the place up." As dawn spread across the grove, golden light touched the taps. A new curiosity appeared, small strips of red wool tied to certain spiles, 5 in all, every one that had played the sharp notes in Clara's mystery phrase. After EMTs bandaged Silas and drove him home, Clara untied one of the ribbons. Emmett studied it. From a fisherman's cap, maybe? Or a pirate's, Clara joked, but tension gnawed her. Someone was marking a trail. She decided to consult the oldest map she knew. Old Captain Sterling, 93, who lived in a cedar shingle cottage overlooking the harbour. Sterling had once skippered lobster boats and could whistle more shanties than YouTube contained. If anyone recognized the widow's ransom, it would be him. He welcomed Clara with tea and molasses cookies, hearing aids whirring. When she hummed the tune, his eyes lit. "Haven't heard that since I was swabbing decks for my uncle 1948, he said. Crew of the Lady Luck sang it on foggy nights. Always skipped the last verse, though. Bad luck, they claimed. Do you know it? Clara asked, eager. He nodded and, in a reedy voice, sang, "Strike the route where crosses three-breast the rising dune. Dig below the salt-scarred tree. The widow finds her boon." Clara jotted the words. "Crosses three," she repeated. Could that be 3 red ribbons? But there were 5. The mystery deepened. She returned to Maple Haven, and over a lunch of chowder spread her evidence on the kitchen table. Emmett and Nora listened. "Crosses 3, Emmett mused. "There's a triple-trunked maple on the west ridge. Folks call it the candelabra." Clara's heart skipped. "Does it stand near sandy ground? The lyric says rising dune." "There's sandy soil all over," Nora said. "But the candelabra is by the old carriage road. It used to lead to the coast before Route 1 cut through." Clara gathered her coat. "Let's have a look before whoever left those ribbons returns." They hiked up the ridge, sheepdog Benji bouncing ahead. The candelabra maple loomed like a 3-armed giant. At its base, weathered roots splayed above a patch of pale, sandy loam. Clara's pulse quickened. Salt-scarred tree, rising dune. But the ground showed no disturbance. Benji, nose twitching, darted to a second maple 20 yards downslope. There, one of the red ribbons fluttered. The tree's bark bore a fresh gouge, as though scraped by metal. Emmett crouched, brushing aside leaves. A square of earth looked tamped. He took Clara's hand spade, ever the gardener she carried one, and dug. 3 inches down, the blade clinked against something solid. Together they scraped away soil, revealing an oblong iron box, rusted shut. No larger than a loaf pan, but heavy. "It's real," Clara whispered. Emmett hefted it out and set it on a stump. The hasp crumbled at a firm twist. Inside lay a handful of coins, black with age, and a rolled sheet of paper sealed with wax. Emmett whistled. Nora, usually composed, clapped both hands to her mouth. "Land sakes!" Clara turned the paper over. The wax bore the same one-eyed skull. They carried the find to the kitchen. As Emmett washed coins, Clara carefully broke the seal. The sheet held a new set of music, shorter, just 4 measures, and beneath, words in Latin she didn't know. She photographed it on her phone and emailed the image to her friend John Park, a linguistics grad student. He replied within minutes. "Not Latin, Basque. Roughly, first share greets the sun, second share greets the tide, third share sleeps beneath the widow's watch." Jun added a note. "Basque sailors served on New England whalers. Pirate using Basque code makes sense." "So the box we found must be 1 share of 3, Clara said. "Someone else is after the rest, probably the person marking taps." Emmett frowned, and they clocked Silas for interfering. "We better call Caleb." But before they could, the screen door banged. Silas stumbled in, arm in sling, cheeks pale. "Clara," he rasped, "we need to talk." Nora poured him tea. Silas looked ashamed. "I wasn't honest earlier. I did receive a letter, anonymous, telling me to bring that sea chest to Maple Haven, that the final key lay among your trees. The writer promised me a percentage of the treasure if I helped recover it." "You didn't think to ask who," Nora scolded. "The letter was signed only W. I assumed it stood for widow. Silas sighed. I thought it a prank until last night, when someone lured me here with a note about sharing the map. Next thing, I'm face down on the floor. Clara remembered the muddy boot prints. Did you see your attacker? A glimpse. Tall, broad-shouldered, smelled of diesel. That description fit half the fishermen in town, but one in particular leapt to Clara's mind. Wade Randall, who owned the competing Sugar Ridge farm a mile over. He hauled sap with a battered diesel pickup and had argued bitterly with Emmett at last month's co-op meeting over pipeline taxes. Wade was here yesterday noon, asking what grade we were pulling, Nora recalled. He paced the west slope. I thought nothing of it. Clara exchanged a look with Emmett. If Wade's after shares 2 and 3, he may come tonight. They phoned Caleb, who agreed to stake out the grove. Clara, however, doubted the constable's patience. If Wade moved quickly, he might escape. She persuaded Silas to lend her the brass pitch pipe and the original parchment. If the first share was buried near a tree marked in the music, the next clues will be in these notes. She squared her shoulders. Let's finish the song. They spread the new 4-measure fragment beside the earlier score. Clara played each on her phone's piano app, noting which original taps corresponded. The pattern rose a full octave, then dropped to a final low F. Greets the sun, east, Emmett theorized. Greets the tide, downhill toward the marsh. Sleeps beneath the widow's watch, maybe that big widowmaker snag on the cliff. Or Widow's Peak, Nora said, the rocky headland above the cove. They overlaid a trail map of the property. 3 positions roughly matched, one to the east fence where morning light hit first, one near the tidal creek, and a third up the headland, technically on public land, but reachable from the grove. If the pirate hid 3 boxes, one remained. Caleb arrived, radio crackling. He posted himself by the sugar shack, while Emmett and Nora pretended business as usual. Clara, Silas, despite his injury, and Benji hiked to the east fence. Under a crooked sapling, they discovered a disturbed patch. Earth turned and left. Whoever dug here had beaten them to it. At the tidal marsh, they found fresh footprints and another empty hole. 2 shares gone. The last one's ours to lose, Clara said. They climbed Widow's Peak. Fog rolled in from the Atlantic, muffling the world. Near the summit stood an ancient spruce struck by lightning years ago, its hollow trunk twisted like a grieving widow's shawl. Clara's stomach fluttered, perfect hiding place. Benji barked. From behind the snag emerged Wade Randall, shovel in hand, eyes glinting. A canvas duffel bulged at his feet. Looking for this? He sneered, nudging the bag. Coins clinked. Silas gasped. Pirate silver. And worth a fortune online, Wade bragged. Your share's 0. Turn around. Walk away. He brandished the shovel like a broadsword. Clara stepped between him and Silas. Wade, that money belongs to history, not eBay. History doesn't pay property taxes. He advanced. A crack echoed. Caleb bursting from the fog, firearm raised. Drop the shovel, Randall. Startled, Wade swung. Caleb dodged. The shovel struck the snag, shattering the rotten wood. A cavity opened. Inside, a third, larger chest, gleaming where rot had preserved the metal. Everyone froze. Wade lunged, but Benji intercepted, teeth to ankle. Wade yelped, toppled, and Caleb cuffed him without further fuss. Under Caleb's supervision, they hauled all 3 chests to the farmhouse. Inside the largest, wrapped in oilcloth, lay not coins, but a stack of ledgers dated 1769, detailing shipments, crew lists, and the precise route of Briggs Carver's smuggling ring, documents historians would prize. A letter atop, addressed to the finder, explained that Carver divided his hoard, instructing each box be opened only if the others were reburied, so no one man could squander everything. The widow, his wife, had written the final verse to ensure it. The letter ended. Treasure, like the maples, thrives when tapped with care and shared in sweetness. Silas wiped his eyes. A pirate with conscience. Nora smiled. Fitzmaine stubbornness. Within days, news spread. The State Historical Society arranged to buy the documents. A college offered Silas a curation role. Wade faced charges for assault and trespass. Emmett donated a portion of the coin sale to the local land trust, ensuring the grove's protection. And Maple Haven syrup orders tripled, thanks to the romantic tale of Shanties and sugar. On Clara's last evening before returning to Boston, she stood among the maples at dusk. The taps clicked in a gentle breeze, plink, plink, plonk, the familiar refrain. She imagined sailors hauling lines, pirates hiding silver, and a widow composing a melody that would echo centuries later through living wood. Emmett joined her, handing over a bottle of deep amber rich as sunset. Its label read Widow's Reserve, First Edition. "For you, detective," he said. "Couldn't have saved the farm without your sharp ears." Clara laughed softly. "All I did was listen." She raised the bottle in toast to the trees and to music hidden in their bark. Somewhere offshore, a bellbuoy tolled, joining the taps in quiet harmony. Mystery solved, treasure shared, the forest settled into evening, sweet as syrup and twice as enduring.